This handsome young man, his face beaten black and blue, is Aster, the adopted son of the head of the Yulhan family. They are the most powerful military family on the continent who have dedicated their swords to protecting the royal family for generations. The head of the family is named Jordan Rix, and he is the only person in the kingdom to possess 7 wings. During one campaign, after unleashing a massacre and clearing the battlefield, he found his seriously injured son standing behind him, and Jordan feigned benevolence as he asked about his well-being. But Aster exposed his cruel father's plot, revealing that he had used his unit as bait for the battle from the very beginning. After using them, he mercilessly discarded them. Upon hearing this, Jordan Rix coldly humiliated him, saying that was the only value a wingless person like him possessed. Many years ago, Jordan Rix found him as a baby barely breathing during a snowstorm. He took him in and raised him, so Aster did everything he could to repay him for saving his life. But because he was not related by blood, he had no wings. His peers always ridiculed him for being wingless and not even having a crest, telling him not to dream too big. They were talking about the wing crest, as the more crests a person has, the greater their latent magical power. Aster was the only one in the duchy who couldn't use magic, earning him the name the Wingless One from his brothers. However, he wasn't discouraged and risked his life training with his sword every single day. He believed that one day this loyalty would be rewarded. In the end, all he received in return was an ambush and his father's cold words. "What right does a mediocre tool like you have to expect anything? You're an eyesore. Get out of my sight at once." Aster finally realized his own foolishness. He gripped his sword tightly and charged straight towards him. But unfortunately, Aster was stopped by his 2 brothers, who bound him tightly with red chains. He crawled in humiliation under the insults of his father and brothers and asked in despair, "If you were just going to abandon me in the end, why did you save me in the first place?" Only from that question did Aster learn the shocking secret. It turned out that his body had possessed the power of the 7 wings from the very beginning. After revealing the truth, the cold-blooded Jordan Rix turned and walked away. He left the weak Aster lying in the snow for his 2 brothers to dispose of. In the moments before his death, he suddenly felt something strange. He vaguely felt his body being enveloped by warmth. Aster slowly opened his eyes to find himself in the body of a newborn baby. He was lying in the arms of a woman. Suddenly, he heard soldiers shouting to each other as they searched the area. They had to find that woman at all costs and bring the newborn baby to Lord Jordan Rix. Hearing the name Jordan Rix, he dazedly recalled that he too had been found on a snowy night. He realized he had returned to the day Jordan Rix found him in the snowstorm. Then Aster struggled with all his might to break free from the woman's arms. He told himself he must save himself to survive and not fall into the hands of the ducal family. Though his limbs burned as if on fire, he continued to crawl through the thick snow. Aster crawled for some distance before collapsing from exhaustion at the feet of a little young lady. The little girl turned her head and called for her father, Viscount David. He quickly scooped him up into his arms and said with concern, "Why is there a child in a place like this?" Then he looked back at the tracks he had made in the snow and was stunned, not expecting the baby to have crawled such a long distance. He became extremely curious about the child's origins. A hazy scene and a faint voice suddenly appeared. "Where am I?" An image of a young Alphen gradually became clear. This child came here to meet me. Just then, Aster startled awake, and the lingering remnants of the dream made him exclaim, "Angel!" Alfie peered in and exclaimed excitedly, "Sister!" The baby opened his eyes. Virgin, standing nearby, frowned and said, "Hey, don't tease him. You'll pinch his cute nose right off." Right after that, Aster suddenly started struggling violently, causing the other children around to panic. What the heck is going on? Aster didn't stop there. He even rubbed his face against Martha's sleeve, making her scream, "No, don't do that." After struggling violently for a moment, Aster leaped out of everyone's arms. He struggled to crawl forward as if trying to grab something ahead of him. Virgin saw this and panicked. Damn it, what on earth is happening? The girl picked Alfie up and gave chase stop right there. Seeing the chaos behind him, Aster was very confused. Why are they chasing me? Soon after, he gritted his teeth, gathering all his magical power to lunge forward. His pupils began to glow strangely. Right after that, Aster's small body was suddenly lifted up by a mysterious energy. "I'm flying, this is magical power." And so, Aster tried to flip his body over to turn the tables. But then the mysterious power vanished, causing his body to plummet. I can't control it, I'm falling. Out of reflex, Aster squeezed his eyes shut in fear, not daring to face it. Just then, a man appeared and caught him. Now you're falling from the sky too. You really are a strange child. Hearing that, Aster's eyes widened as he turned to look, and he realized this man was Viscount Hephaestus, the older brother of Duke Jordan. The moment he realized it, Aster's inner voice whispered, "It can't be. Don't tell me this is another branch of the Elheim family." A fragment of his memory surfaced. Hephaestus Elheim, head of the Viscount house, a collateral branch of the Elheim family. He once stood shoulder to shoulder with his younger brother Jordan as one of the two pillars entrusted with protecting the royal family. But the Viscount Hephaestus I knew died in the Civil War, along with the destruction of his entire family. Now I'm sure of it. After putting all the pieces together, Aster was stunned to realize he had actually gone back to the past. Aster sighed helplessly. I tried to escape the Duke's family, and now I've been picked up by his older brother. Later, Aster lay snugly in a woman's arms. She looked at him with concern. The child's magical power went wild, causing him to fly into the sky. It seemed so. I already knew he was no ordinary baby. Then the corners of her mouth turned up in a friendly smile. The woman held Aster tightly and comforted him. "You must have been very scared. You're safe now." Hearing her words, he could only stare wide-eyed in confusion. Standing nearby, Hephaestus also looked on and smiled unconsciously. He gently reached out to touch Aster and said softly, "This child possesses an unimaginable power." Hephaestus lifted his shirt, revealing the mark on his back, and stated, "This mark is the proof." When the woman saw the mark, her expression was one of shock. "This is that Duke." Aster himself was shocked to see the mark. "Why has this appeared on my body?" Just then his pupils constricted as if he had remembered something. He remembered Roderick's words from his previous life. "What we need is the power of that Duke inside you." Upon realizing this, he was momentarily stunned. So that's how it is. Aster then remembered the scene from that snowy night. Roderick had taken Aster away to achieve his goals. Thinking about it all, he clenched his fists in fury. He saved me only to steal that Duke. What right did he have to tear off someone's wings with his own hands and still dare to speak of it? The woman suddenly hugged him tightly and asked worriedly, "What then?" She looked at Hephaestus's expression and asked cautiously, "What should we do with this child?" A bad feeling suddenly arose in his mind. His small hands clenched. "I can't let this power fall into the hands of the Elheim family. I need this power to get my revenge on him." Hephaestus thought for a moment, then decided, "I will adopt this child." His words caused the tension within Aster to vanish, replaced by a look of astonishment. Hephaestus extended his hands toward Aster. He gently patted the boy's head and said, "Right now, this child is just a fledgling that can't fly on its own yet. Until the day he chooses to take flight of his own will, I will take responsibility for raising him." Hearing that, Aster's eyes widened in disbelief. Just then, Martha and Jean suddenly fell over. Seeing the children gradually appear, Viscount Frey asked seriously, "Did you all hear that?" Martha sat up and whispered softly, "We were just worried about the child." Seeing this, Viscount Frey could only sigh. Freya excitedly ran to the woman's side. The little girl looked at Aster with an eager expression. "What is this baby's name?" She smiled and thought for a moment. "Let's see now." Afterwards, she lifted him up and named him Aster, the name of a new star just born into our family. Time flew by, and 10 years passed in a flash. As soon as he set foot at the school, a man said respectfully, "We have been waiting for you, Viscount Frey." At that moment, the mysterious figure of Aster appeared from the carriage. Stepping down from the carriage, he walked with an air of utmost confidence. Aster, even carefully and gently, helped Alphine be careful coming down. She smiled back. "Thank you, Aster." Aster smiled as he watched Alphine's playful demeanor. Then he took his sword and walked behind Alphine. The Sword Dance Society, a high society event held annually by a renowned ducal family under Elheim. Intended for the martial arts nobility, it is outwardly a place for families to strengthen ties, but also a stage for each family to show off their promising young swordsmen. Soon, both of them walked behind Viscount Frey, the bearers of their lineage's glory. And so, Viscount Frey led the way with Aster and Alphine following majestically behind. All around, students were whispering, "Look, the Viscount's family has arrived. Are they here to make a fool of themselves again? I heard they couldn't produce an heir, so they adopted some nobody kid. How much longer are they going to drag the Elheim name through the mud?" Aster walked past, calmly surprising everyone. "So that's the kid. Alphine noticed he seemed to be paying attention and reminded him, "Don't mind them." She squeezed his hand and warned, "In a place like this, show even a hint of weakness, and you'll be crushed instantly." Aster walked on with a stoic expression next to Alphine, whose arm was trembling with anger. Viscount Frey also advised in a low voice, "This is the current standing of our Viscount family." After a moment's hesitation, he looked back at him with a trusting gaze. "I want you to see it with your own eyes." He looked at Aster's ice-cold expression and asked, "Are you disappointed?" The corner of his mouth twitched into a smile, his attitude firm. "Not at all, father. This kind of coldness suits me just fine." Seeing that attitude, Viscount Frey laughed proudly. "That's good then. In my past life as the disgrace of the Elham family, I had the worst possible debut in high society. A place full of bitter memories, Aster gripped his sword tightly with a resolute thought. But now that that duke has returned, I am different. Aster's eyes were sharp as a blade as he frowned, staring intently at his target. Just then, Viscount Frey Alphine and Aster suddenly looked up at a classroom window. Through the glass, Dallas R. and Gareth Ryan appeared with unfriendly expressions. Aster stared straight ahead in silence, his hand unconsciously clenching into a fist. He followed Viscount Frey and thought with satisfaction, "Then, let's begin a brilliant debut into high society." The swordsmanship tournament, the city's main event, began a testament to the era when knights ruled the world. In the arena, a swordsman gripped his sword with a determined gaze. His opponent was no slouch either, gritting his teeth as he charged forward. It was clear that a knight must possess both strength and spirit. The two of them charged at each other head-on amidst the cheers of the crowd. Strength is swordsmanship, and the stronger swordsman quickly knocked his opponent away. Spirit is fame. He charged forward coldly. The two continued to use their momentum to rush at each other, and there is one thing that proves a person possesses both. A mark gradually appeared on the swordsman's hand, and his eyes began to glow brightly. The swordsman decisively swung his sword, shattering his opponent's blade, leaving him completely battered. In the end, he raised his sword to the admiration of everyone. The ultimate symbol of it all is the Anduk. The winner is also the one whose Anduk is clearly visible on their body. Aphyn in the stands covered her ears in discomfort. This place was still maddeningly suffocating. She silently recalled Flen and Flu's expressions from earlier and sighed. It's no wonder both Flu and Flen dislike this place. Meanwhile, Arsène just lowered his head, lost in thought. He suddenly recalled the miserable sight of his defeat against Dallas. Aophyn glanced over at Arsène curiously and called out, "Arsène." She asked worriedly, "Are you nervous? After all, this is your first sword dance festival?" Contrary to how he was before, he now answered confidently, "Actually, no." He thought to himself, if anything, it just feels familiar. Aophyn couldn't help but be confused. Just then, Lord Freya walked over and instructed, "I'm stepping out for a meeting. Help me look after Aophyn." Hearing this, she was a bit displeased. "Father, I'm much more capable than Arsène." He could only smile and reply, "You're clumsy." He listened, then placed a hand on Arsène's shoulder with a hopeful gaze. "There are many children your age here. Build relationships when you can." Then his expression changed as he whispered an instruction, "And don't let anyone find out about that Duke." He watched Lord Freya's retreating back with some hesitation. "Father says that, but—" He noticed everyone's murderous glares were fixed on him. Arsène sighed in frustration. In such an openly hostile atmosphere, how am I supposed to connect with anyone? Suddenly, he realized something. Aophyn was surprised to see Arsène leaving in a hurry. "Arsène, where are you going?" Without looking back, he just replied, "To make some friends." Arsène walked straight over to Dallas and his group of friends. Dallas had a scornful look on his face. "Who is this kid?" He raised his voice to introduce himself. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Cousin Dallas." A satisfied look spread across Arsène's face. "I am Arsène Elheim, your younger brother." Arsène continued ignoring his grimace. "I saw you from over there and came to say hello." Grayon, standing next to him, sneered, "Is that the adopted kid? The one the Viscount took in?" Hearing that, Dallas laughed with a disgusted look on his face. "I see no wonder you have the nerve to call me your brother." He looked at the two before him and couldn't help but feel angry. Dallas and Grayon, the two legitimate heirs of the Elheim family. The two who killed me in my past life. Arsène thought silently. They once seemed so terrifying, but now, before him, his endless hatred was directed at mere children putting on adult airs. Aophyn suddenly appeared, breaking the tension. Arsène. She grabbed Arsène's hand and said in a stern voice, "Let's go, we're heading back." Consider them greeted. The moment Dallas saw her, he called out, "Aophin, you came too." He was extremely eager to tease her. "So you're not hiding behind your father today." His words grew increasingly rude. "Come over here and entertain your elders. This is an order from the main family, you know that, don't you?" Instead, Aophin just shot Dallas an angry glare. "No thank you. The main and branch families are not in a master-servant relationship." As he was being pulled away, Arsène quickly called out sister. Before he could finish, he felt her hands trembling. I wasn't finished talking. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel sad. Dallas then adopted an arrogant tone, shouting, "You guys know what?" He started to gossip. Her father was a knight, but he couldn't protect the king. So to take responsibility, his own younger brother chopped off his arm. Aophin froze for a moment after hearing this, but Dallas wasn't done yet. "Thank God I don't carry that failure's blood." She yelled furiously, "Take back what you said." Before Alfie could finish speaking, Dallas spat a mouthful of wine right in her face. "If you dare insult my father, I won't let it slide." He looked at her with contempt. All he could produce were useless daughters, unable to even father a male heir. "Your father must be so disappointed in you, right?" He then gave a cunning look and pointed at her. "This isn't a ball. Next time, wear something you don't mind getting drenched, or better yet, just wear some rags." Hearing this, Alfie could only clench her dress in silence. She thought resentfully, and here I was, worried on the way over. He looked at each of their faces. I thought that maybe when I saw them again, I wouldn't be angry anymore. With that thought, Acer took the wine bottle from their hands. He then approached Alfie and put a hand on her shoulder. But what a relief. Without hesitation, he tossed the wine bottle to Dallas. Dallas caught the bottle a little wary. Acer immediately swung his sword and sliced the bottle in half. "You're still the same piece of trash as always." The wine splashed all over Dallas, shocking him. "Huh." Gideon at his side worriedly said, "Brother." Meanwhile, he simply licked the wine from his sword and said, "What, it's just grape juice." Then, mirroring Dallas's earlier look of disgust, he said, "It really suits a parasitic noble like you." Flashing back to 3 years ago, a piercing scream rang out, "Stop him, Acer!" Hyperion warned, "Are you trying to kill your own sisters? Don't move." He commanded sternly, "Come to your senses." Witnessing this, Hyperion was stunned. So this is that Duke. I never imagined it contained such dangerous power. He wondered to himself, can this power truly be controlled? He himself was confused and filled with doubt. By me and by you as well, Acer. Just then, a subordinate rushed in to report, "My Lord Viscount, something urgent has come up." Those present frowned at the sudden interruption. "What is it? We're in the middle of negotiations." The subordinate stammered. He finally dared to report the sons of the heads of the main and branch families of House Elham are dueling. The moment the words left his mouth, Hyperion scowled. "What?" Roderick, however, revealed a deep, inscrutable expression. As soon as he heard the news, he stood up and left without hesitation. At that moment, Alfie came rushing over. "Father!" He paused slightly. "Alfie!" she asked. "What's going on?" A duke's voice called out excitedly, "Look over there!" He sounded quite pleased. A duel between brothers of the Elham clan isn't a sight you see every day. His gaze held a judgmental tone, regardless of how this match ends. This piqued the curiosity of everyone else in the room. The duke's lips curled into a smirk. This sword festival might turn into a catastrophe. Down in the courtyard, Dallas raised his sword, declaring daring to challenge a ducal house. What a fool! You're just a bastard raised on the streets who doesn't even recognize the gap in our strength. The surrounding crowd went wild at the sight. That's the four-winged crest. As expected of the Duke's heir, he's on another level entirely. He couldn't hide his smug expression. "Come on, let me see your wing crest." He continued to taunt him. "Or are you too embarrassed to summon yours after seeing mine?" Acer, however, remained strangely calm. He thought with disdain, "I couldn't bring myself to do something so shameful." These words completely infuriated Dallas. Before he could get any angrier, Acer proposed, "If I win, you have to apologize to my sisters. Deal, cousin." He readily agreed, "Fine. And if I win, you'll be my dog." Dallas's eyes were now brimming with confidence. "I'll order you around for life." His attack was quickly blocked by Acer, but the force was so great that he was pushed back, sending dust flying everywhere. Acer's hands tightened their grip on his sword. Dallas declared arrogantly, "This is the power of the one who wields it." With that, he charged forward like a storm. Seeing this, Aphine grew incredibly worried. The spiky-haired count thought that Dallas's swordsmanship was still amateurish. Looking at the current situation, no matter how poor his technique was, the overwhelming mana from the wing emblem was enough to compensate for everything. To compare, if the mana of one wing is like candlelight, Then the mana sealed within 4 wings is an explosion. The more he fought, the more Dallas's momentum grew. Where did that earlier attitude of yours go? He continued to taunt. Didn't you say you would make me apologize, or was that all just talk? He roared, show me your power. Watching from above, the blonde duke was a bit surprised. Is the match over already? The tip of Aster's sword flashed as he blocked the powerful attack. This made Dallas stare in stunned disbelief. What? He simply replied coldly, you talk too much. With that, Aster exerted his strength. He sent his cousin flying into the air. His aura at that moment was incredibly domineering. Aster thought to himself, for the past 10 years, I've learned to control mana at the Viscount's house, just waiting for the right opportunity to get my revenge on you all. A sharp glint flashed in his eyes. His next attack aimed straight for Dallas's head, without hesitation, giving him no time to react. Forced back, his feet dug into the cold ground. Everyone around could only stare in amazement. Unbelievable, Dallas is actually being pushed back. Even he himself couldn't understand it. But I have 4 wings. Aster remained silent, not uttering a single word. Dallas's sword now looked like it was about to snap in 2. The amount of mana being released was immense. The crowd finally erupted in an uproar. Could it be that he's actually going to win? Someone commented, Dallas is being completely overwhelmed with no chance to fight back. Everyone felt a chill run down their spine. Does the House of Elheim still have a monster like that? His assault continued. Afine grew anxious. This isn't good. Dallas gritted his teeth, enduring the pressure. He tried to recall what had happened in the past. He stammered, hey, stop! From above, a shout also rang out, stop Aster! An immense power was unleashed. Everyone had witnessed a spectacular sight. Dallas's sword actually broke in 2. It was over. He added, next time you should wear something ragged. Aster enunciated each word, something you don't mind getting dirty, cousin. He realized he was no longer Aster the Wingless One. Afine looked at him and smiled with satisfaction. For now, just realizing that is enough to clear my head. All of a sudden, Aster's pupils contracted. An oppressive power was slowly approaching, startling him. The real enemy had only just appeared. That person was Roderick. The hall was now filled with endless chatter. Unbelievable, the youngest son of a Viscount family actually defeated the 3rd son of the main branch's head. Amidst the buzzing chatter, a pair of feet stepped forward slowly. But this has truly gotten out of control. There's no way that person would remain silent after being dishonored like this. It was none other than Asher with a serious expression, the 8th head of the main Elam branch. At this, Dallas let out a soft laugh, his eyes watching. Asher slowly approached Roderick. He raised his voice, his face turning sharp and cold. Faced with this intimidating presence, he showed no fear at all. Duke Roderick Elam. Immediately after, Dallas hastily jumped to his feet. He wretchedly knelt before Roderick father. Dallas immediately snitched, pointing repeatedly at Asher. It's him, the bastard, who dares to oppose the main branch, even though he's just a filthy half-breed. His arrogance is infuriating. Father, please use your authority to put him in his place. Roderick did not reply, but struck him. Dallas stared at his hand in horror. Roderick's cruel act silenced the entire hall. Even Gareth was completely stunned. Roderick withdrew his hand, his eyes cold and powerful. Why can a loser smile so shamelessly, you who have tarnished our family's honor? Someone who cannot even avenge himself. Seeing this, Hyperion shouted in alarm, Duke, stop! He paid him no mind, raising his hand high, unworthy of holding a sword. The entire room fell silent in an instant. Dallas was now trembling with fear. Roderick glanced over, his eyes cold. He was surprised by Asher's action. What do you think you're doing? He remained calm and explained slowly, my cousin has yet to apologize to her. Asher's gaze was steady as he spoke directly. Please hold off on the punishment until that is done. At these words, Roderick's expression grew darker. I heard you were just an orphan, Hyperion took in. Do you really think you are an Elam now? He replied slowly, his voice calm. I am the eldest son, even if not by blood. I believe I have learned enough from my father about a knight's self-respect and the honor of the family. Hearing his answer, he glanced upwards. Instantly, Roderick grew even more furious. Then, as a member of the Viscount's family, you have needlessly brought shame upon the family head, the pinnacle of 12,000 knights, the king's sword, and our pride. Those present listened intently to his words, surely understanding that this could no longer be considered a childish quarrel. Even he was stunned by Roderick's words. You of all people should understand that best. From above, he watched the two of them intently. Roderick continued his speech. In the past, an arm was lost to atone for disloyalty. The blade was close to Asher's collar. So what will you offer? He suddenly replied with the utmost respect, Uncle. His voice was firm and unyielding. This is not a quarrel between brothers, but a formal duel. I am merely responding with my sword to the insults against our family. Roderick raised his voice, his sharp gaze never leaving him. Asher, showing no fear, retorted bluntly, "He who cannot avenge himself is not worthy of holding a sword." You said that, didn't you, Uncle? I have no intention of losing even a finger. From her high vantage point, Ophelia trembled at his words. He raised an eyebrow, his eyes full of interest. Is the kid only 10? You're kidding, right? Despite this, Roderick's stern expression remained unchanged. A moment later, he finally relented. Turn away, I understand. But then Roderick suddenly turned back. Then get into your stance. Asher immediately adopted a ready stance. The blade swept horizontally, grazing past his neck. He showed no mercy, and the force from the sword sent Asher flying. Witnessing the scene, Ophelia covered her mouth in shock. In a panic, Heifer screamed, "Jordan Ricks!" He angrily swung his sword at Jordan's back. He calmly and quickly blocked the sword strike. Heifer landed safely on the ground. He anxiously rushed over to him. "Arthur, are you all right, Arthur?" But all he saw there was a broken sword. Heifer couldn't believe his eyes. Surprisingly, Arthur was still standing firm. Though covered in injuries, his gaze remained resolute. Jordan Ricks glanced coldly at his stubbornness. Without a word, he turned and walked away. Rogers had a grim expression, his hands clenched tightly. The moment he left, Arthur lost his balance and stumbled to the ground. Heifer worriedly caught him. Arthur struggled to speak. "I kept my word, Father, my promise, and everything." He frowned at his reckless son. "You did very well." Jordan Ricks slowly ascended the stairs. He was waiting there and couldn't help but tease him. That was a rather childish move. Without a hint of fear, he calmly analyzed, but if we let the boy talk like that, the head of the main branch would lose all face. So wasn't it reasonable to end it there? Even he couldn't stop praising Arthur. He faced Duke Rogers directly, stood his ground, and survived. That kid is a true genius. He happily stroked his chin. For that boy, it was the most perfect debut into high society. The man beside him then spoke up. "Even so, I was quite frightened. I thought El Ham was going to be torn in two right here." Buter Ricks looked at the two of them, his eyes red. An era of turmoil will eventually come. He slowly pronounced, "A storm so fierce, it's strong enough to tear this world into 2 or 3 pieces." The next morning, the blue sky was scattered with fluffy white clouds. In the beautiful landscape, a man's jaw was agape, his surprise evident. Before him, a young Arthur had defeated veteran soldiers. He was extremely surprised, the corner of his mouth lifting into a slight smile. How wonderful! He exclaimed happily, "Young Master Arthur!" The soldiers watching from behind exclaimed in amazement, "His skills are incredible. To reach this level at only 10 years old, it's terrifying." One person excitedly replied, "After the sword dance tournament, his training intensity has become even more monstrous. Besides, have you guys heard the young master defeated the 3rd young master of the Rogers Duchy? They were extremely satisfied because that main branch has looked down on us for so many years. This is truly gratifying." Meanwhile, Arthur's mind and eyes showed a clear desire for victory. "At the sword dance tournament, I showed enough of my strength and spirit. Every powerful sword strike he made seemed to speak his heart. At least it was enough to quell the ridicule that the side branch family is the shame of El Ham. But the real obstacle is still the head of the El Ham family. I truly want to know where my real limits are. I want to test myself in that arena again, but..." His expression became determined. His eyebrows raised slightly, showing clear confidence. "At my current level, I can't defeat Rogers." Amidst the swirling wind, Arthur had a sudden realization. In the end, the An-Khan is just a measure of the latent magical power within the body. Innate talent is just a wasted treasure if you can't control it. Yet I still can't release the power of that Duke. He swung the weapon in his hand forcefully. If only I didn't have to worry about losing control. If only I could test the power of that Duke to its very limits. A decisive slash tore through the ground, sending his opponent flying. Arthur's gaze grew heavy, cold, and certain. The last sword fell. His voice rang out with a challenge. "Next, who else is there?" In the blink of an eye, Arthur had defeated all the soldiers he was facing. From behind, a clear female voice called out, "You're fighting with a lot of spirit today." Alpha tilted his head with a slight smirk, his words sounding reproachful. "You really don't know any restraint. Asher Father is calling for you." There. He walked quietly among the fallen bodies. "Father, yes, I'm coming right away." As he walked past her, Asher paused, a hint of surprise in his eyes. That outfit. Iofin turned slightly, her face calm, but her eyes were scrutinizing. Asher didn't hesitate and spoke frankly. "I rarely see you wear that. Didn't you say you hated wearing it because it wasn't cute?" Iofin sighed softly, her voice calm. "Everything needs balance, right? Looking at you, I realized I can't just stand still like this forever." Then she raised her wooden sword, pointing it at him as a warning. She cleared her throat, half joking and half serious. "When you get back, you'll have to spend a lot of time with me." Hearing that, Asher couldn't help but laugh out loud. He raised both hands to the sky in a gesture, "Go easy on me." Asher stood before the door to the room, knocking lightly. Then he gently pushed the door open and entered. "May I come in?" Hyper Giai tilted his head slightly, his expression cold. "I called for you. Sit down." Asher sat down cautiously. Amidst the heavy atmosphere in the room, he leaned back in his chair, a look of fatigue in his eyes. "It's been 10 years since you joined our family." Suddenly, Hafer Giai brought out a precious treasure before Asher's astonished gaze. "Actually, I was planning to wait until you were a little older." But he looked at it, his mind in turmoil. "This is," he frowned, his gaze stern, "the proof of the successor to the Asher family." Hyper Giai slowly requested, "I want you to succeed the Viscount family." At his somewhat unexpected proposal, Asher's whole body froze. As you know, the position of the Viscount family is very sensitive. Hyper Giai explained softly, "But despite our flaws, we are still a branch family bearing the Eoham name, the lords who protect this domain. There are many things we must protect." He looked worried. "I can't leave the position of the future family head vacant forever." Even so, Asher seemed quite concerned. "Will my sisters agree?" Hyper Giai reassured him softly. "Your sisters are studying at the Night Academy. They'll be back in 3 days. I plan to talk to them then." He was worried. "Martha and Kaifrika are coming back." But Asher's face darkened. "If that's the case, they won't be happy, especially Kaifrika. She will be absolutely furious." He stated clearly, "She hates me because I happen to be born a boy and happen to possess the power of that Duong." Asher refused decisively, and immediately, "I can't agree to this." His voice carried a chilling tone. "I can't even control my own magic power. I'm still the child who nearly killed his own sister." Asher stated, "I don't have the confidence to face my sister's resentment." Hyper Giai didn't speak right away, but smiled faintly. After a long moment of contemplation, he finally spoke. "Sometimes I really wonder if you're truly a child." He excitedly placed a luxurious wooden box on the table. "This ring was originally the reward for your performance at the sword dance tournament." He observed the box meticulously. "But perhaps you'll like this more." His eyes suddenly lit up. Asher looked excited. "What is it?" Hyper Giai explained in a deep voice. "What's inside is the magic sword Graham, a blade that consumes magic power. This sword can control the power of that Duong." Hyper Giai led him to a forest. Asher asked curiously, "Father, if we're just testing the sword, couldn't we just go to the training hall?" "No, this is just in case things go wrong." He recalled, "When you were little, you had a tendency to wreck the house quite often." Hyper Giai raised the sword, his gaze stern. "The magic sword Graham is a renowned treasure passed down only to the firstborn son of the Eoham family. This sword was originally entrusted to the main family for safekeeping, but I personally brought it back here just for you." A glint of steel flashed the moment the blade left its scabbard. Asher's pupils contracted, his eyes shaken by the blinding light. The sword was strangely forged, unlike any weapon he had ever seen. "Is this a sword? I don't see a blade." A blue aura coiled around the steel, while a deep red energy erupted violently. The sword instantly transformed, but when you pour your magic power into it, the red energy gathered, stretching and distorting with each pulse of magic. The sword will be shaped based on its master's own magic power. Magic power exploded from the blade, dyeing the surrounding ground red. A vortex of air swirled in the middle of the forest, sucking leaves and debris into its center. Hyper Giai held the blazing red sword tightly, a stern gaze. "However, if the wielder lacks sufficient ability, the sword will drain all their mana. This is a blade with a dark reputation." The flaming sword stopped right before Astar. He offered, "Well, want to try it?" Without hesitation, Astar confidently gripped the sword. Flames erupted fiercely behind him, and in his hand a vortex of mana swirled as if answering a call. "My mana is pouring into this sword." Mana exploded, a golden light tearing through space. What is this feeling? In the fiery reflection, red mana surged like a living creature. Is my mana flowing into the sword on its own? A red beam of light shot straight up into the sky. Something has officially been unleashed. Their faces turned pale. What was that light just now? A meteor falling from the sky. You fool, on the contrary, something just shot straight up. Amidst the chaos, Eowyn just quietly watched them from behind. What do you mean, something? Without looking for long, she had already guessed the source of that light. It must be Astar. He tightened his grip on the sword, his golden eyes shining with excitement. This sword is truly unbelievable. Hyfer Giai's eyes wavered slightly. The unbelievable thing here is your power. The sky twisted into a giant vortex, wind and clouds becoming one. A power that transcends the limits of our entire clan now exists within you, the one who bears the mark of the 7 wings. Even looking back through the entire bloodline history of the Elheim clan, there has never been anyone like this. If you master all of that power, then one day, you will become a swordsman who surpasses even me with my 6 pairs of wings, and even surpasses Wold. A thought surfaced in his mind. At that moment, I'll surpass him. His hand tightened on the hilt, and a light glinted on the blade. But immense power will always create conflict. From his back, brilliant golden wings of mana unfurled. If the fact that you possess 7 wings gets out, the greater the power, the more dangers and enemies you will face. Some will be envious, some will resent you, and there will be those who scheme to use you for their own purposes. And there will also be those who want to eliminate you as an obstacle. Hyfer Giai's hand reached out before him, so that when that time comes, you won't have to regret being powerless. He held out his hand under the sunlight, filtering through the leaves. Become strong starting now, Astar. Their hands clasped tightly. That's right. I will not live a pathetic life like my previous one again. Astar looked up, his eyes filled with determination. Thank you, Father. I will master the 7 wings and this sword. The whole family stood outside the main hall. 3 days later, welcome home. At the gate, Kulaverka approached full of spirit. Your 2 useless sisters have returned. The girl covered her mouth and smiled, her face flashing with mischief. Kulaverka spread her arms wide, a radiant, enthusiastic smile that wanted to embrace everyone. Come now, my adorable little sisters, give your beloved big sister a warm hug. Both of them ignored Kulaverka and rushed to hug Martha. Welcome home, sister Martha, oh my. She froze, turning to scold them. What about hugging Sister Kulaverka? The 2 of them grimaced and explained, because Sister Kulaverka always messes up our hair. She was not pleased, turning away to avoid their gaze. No way I, who have trained my knightly spirit to perfection, would never do something so indelicate. Kulaverka saw Eowyn standing nearby. She enthusiastically threw herself into her arms. Eowyn, have you been a good girl? While hugging and patting Eowyn's head, she quickly asked, why did you run over here? Martha looked around, noticed someone was missing, and asked, where is Astar? Hyfer Giai hesitated and said, about that boy. As soon as she heard his name, her expression changed. A terrifying flash of light came from the other side of the forest. Astar was frantically training to control this mysterious sword. He gritted his teeth, sweat pouring down his face. Damn it, still not working. He focused on the mana he had just created and considered it carefully. I can shape a sword out of mana, but this is as far as I can control it. Astar kept trying to practice, carefully examining the sword. He wondered how could father control it so effortlessly. However, Kulaverka approached her tone, mocking, quite the show-off, aren't you? Astar was surprised. You're back, Sister Kulaverka. You didn't even show up to greet your sister who just returned. She raised an eyebrow, her tone teasing. Isn't that a bit cold? Her words gradually became harsher. Are we not even worth your attention? Or is it because you think you're special? I heard all about what happened at the Sword Dance Festival. Even the Knight Academy is talking about you. Father must be so proud. But Astar replied calmly. On the other hand, regarding you, I heard that even as an apprentice, you've already achieved numerous outstanding merits on your missions. Kulaverka was wearing the Knight Academy's medal and was also the only person to receive this year's honorary Knight medal, the Platinum Medal. Of course. Otherwise, how could I inherit our father's position? Her eyes gradually turned fierce. I heard you refused your right to succession. Why? Astar anxiously tried to figure out how to handle the situation. Is she trying to warn me? Father already told her what a pain. That's not it. He smirked slightly. I just think I'm still not ready to take on the role. Her steps came to a firm, powerful halt. To be honest, both father and I know very well what your dream is. Klurvka drew her sword. How cruel of you. What are you doing all of a sudden? Aster watched closely, unable to hide his anxious gaze. She swiftly cut down the tall tree beside them. It flew powerfully towards him. Fortunately, he dodged just in time. Aster's eyes widened in shock. What was that for? Klurvka coldly proposed, "Let's see, it's been a while. Let me test your skills." She confidently slung the sword over her shoulder. I'm going to be serious with the next one. On the other hand, Aster anxiously tried to stop her. Wait, Klurvka, this sword isn't finished yet. But she was unconvinced. Can you make the same excuse when you face an enemy on the battlefield? Aster burst out laughing. An enemy! Klurvka knelt, her eyes burning with the desire to take him down. A knight must always act as if they are on a battlefield. If you keep holding back, I will crush you. He was stunned and worried. This is not a joke. Seeing her charge at me with her sword, it's taking everything I have to keep my magic from bursting out right now. His eyes grew cold and sharp. It seems I have no other choice. He struggled to parry the blow, otherwise Klurvka would kill me. The entire forest was instantly thrown into chaos, the landscape in disarray. Klurvka continued to press forward with her sword. My swordsmanship is as sharp as ever, isn't it? I'm surprised you can keep up with my sword, especially after training at the Knight Academy. She continued, however, what is this half-assed swordsmanship? Klurvka swung her sword fiercely. It sent Aster stumbling backward. Your control over your magic is a complete mess. He managed to land safely on his feet. Aster couldn't believe it and yelled out. Klurvka still shows no mercy at all. He suddenly thought to himself, in my memory, she's always been like this. Just because I'm the only son in this Viscount family with the right of succession, Aster recalled his childhood, and because she was special, possessing a wing insignia that surpassed everyone else in the clan. He also remembered Klurvka chasing him down, a sister who was like a storm, always looking for an excuse to call him useless and challenge him. But while Aster was lost in thought, she suddenly vanished. To put it bluntly, she is my natural enemy. A voice suddenly rang out, startling him. Is that really you, Aster? Klurvka suddenly appeared from above. She swung her sword forcefully, her sharp voice ringing out, You are not worthy to become the next head of our clan. Elsewhere, Martha gazed calmly out the window. Father, is it really okay to just leave them be? She looked at her father with concern. In the worst-case scenario, this sibling fight will end with one of them dead. You do know that, right, Father? However, Hyperion didn't seem concerned in the slightest. In their own way, they are great rivals for one another. It might be a little reckless, but it won't lead to such a tragic outcome. Martha frowned slightly. I hope you're right. Then she slowly walked closer. To get back on topic, Father, why did you summon us from the Knight Academy? It surely wasn't just to discuss the matter of succession. Hyperion gently pulled something from his desk drawer. You are correct. Martha was completely shocked, unable to believe her eyes. This is... The item he took out was a letter of summons from the Elheim clan. It seems the elders in charge of the main branch of the family. They want to see their grandchild in person. She lowered her gaze, rubbing her chin in thought. This is truly a serious matter. Hyperion's expression turned serious as his eyes darted to the side. In the worst-case scenario, we dot model. He slowly stated the worst-case scenario, we might lose Arthur. Meanwhile, Arthur was trying to fight back. Stop talking nonsense. I already refused the inheritance. You heard it too, right, Kurt? However, Kuliefa showed no mercy, and that's what's making me so mad. She decisively swung her sword at Arthur. So heavy, he thought to himself. It feels like fighting a bull holding a sledgehammer. His hand slid and rotated lightly and flexibly. That move made Kuliefa lunge forward. He decisively swung his sword high while shouting loudly, Will you please just listen to me? Faced with his actions, she wasn't worried at all. You're just running away, aren't you? Kuliefa calmly swung her sword with conviction. The immense force made him stagger. He slammed hard into a tree. What kind of monstrous strength is this? Her blade continuously gathered mana on its own. Only knowing how to swing a sword is third-rate. Kuliefa calmly delivered her judgment. Being able to control your magic is second-rate. She stood there and continued speaking. Only when you master the way of the magic sword can you be considered first-rate. Her eyes couldn't hide her disgust. I'm so disappointed, Arthur. Kuliefa slowly began to explain. The difference in wing emblems directly reflects the amount of magic we can contain. They say a one-wing difference means double the power. Then she held up 2 fingers. In other words, in terms of magical firepower and physical strength, my second-rate 5 wings is completely inferior to your 7 wings. Kuliefa's slightly mocking voice rang out. and yet you still avoid a direct clash with that cowardly swordsmanship you favor. She smirked playfully. Can't you trust in your own power to achieve your ideal swordsmanship? Kuliefa suddenly brought up the past. Or are you afraid you'll lose control again, just like that time? At that moment, Arthur had a shocking realization, afraid of the power of the 7 wings. He looked at the sword in his hand and thought, I've never considered that have I been unconsciously suppressing my own power. Doubt arose in Arthur's mind. Could it be that I've been forcefully suppressing my magic, making this sword so unstable? However, before he could think, Kuliefa used her mana again. Arthur, you have everything I have ever wanted. She gripped her sword. If you're just going to let that good fortune rot away without realizing it, then I have every right to be arrogant. Then she charged forward without hesitation. Give it all back to me. Unwilling to lose, Arthur took his stance. 2 powerful streams of mana immediately clashed. Seeing that she couldn't help but shout in confusion, he repelled my full power attack. Arthur spoke slowly and calmly. Thank you, you've helped me see the light. Seeing him charge, Kuliefa thought to herself, he's charging without even forming a blade. She frantically tried to swing her sword forward. Impossible, he should have exhausted his magic from that last attack. At that moment, Arthur thought to himself about the endless source of magic hidden within the 7 wings. He quietly calculated his next move. I can't completely control it right now. But just for this moment, it won't maintain the shape of a sword, but will focus all its magic right at the moment of attack. Kuliefa suddenly smiled. So you have thought of something after all, you fool. Arthur suddenly muttered something. This second life that I happen to get. A strange mana seal suddenly appeared behind him. I will absolutely not waste it, and I won't waste this power either. Arthur recalled the things that were important to him, both of his swords and his family, everything. No matter how much I gain, it still feels like I have nothing. Those words made Kuliefa even more bewildered. A second life. Because of that, he gathered a dense stream of mana. Arthur decisively aimed straight for her sword. He suddenly vanished. It made Kuliefa suspicious. What? Then she stammered. The sword vanished. As if he were a different person, Arthur whispered softly, I won't hold back anymore. It was then that Khalifa felt something was off her eyes, suddenly widening in surprise. Khalifa was stunned and slowly spoke, Is this my room? A voice suddenly rang out, Are you finally awake? She immediately replied, Sister Martha, I really overslept. Khalifa suddenly sat up, then tried to remember. The match with Arsene, what on earth happened? However, she happily told me that Asher was the one who carried me back here. As she spoke, she pinched my cheek. He said, You dozed off right in the middle of the match. He also said it was probably because you were tired from the long journey. Khalifa glanced at her sword. That's not right, she thought to herself. Many thoughts arose in her mind in that final moment. I thought I was struck down by Asher. She couldn't help but marvel at the event, but in reality, before the impact, Asher had dispelled that magical blade. Even she could feel it, and only the remnants of that magic had grazed her body. Thinking about it carefully, there's no way Asher would kill his own sister. She couldn't suppress the doubt in her heart, but in that very moment, I truly thought I was going to be killed. Khalifa suddenly smiled. He really is the most annoying little brother, even though he's clearly smaller. Then she suddenly grabbed her sword. Sister Martha, is Asher going to fight again this time? Khalifa aggressively threw off the blanket. I won't accept that match. She insisted, This time I'll use my full strength from the very beginning. Martha suddenly interrupted. If you're looking for Asher, he's already left, you know. That sentence left her completely stunned. She calmly explained that a summons from the main house had arrived specifically for Asher, so he had already departed. You didn't know her face now showed a look of utter confusion. She shouted in panic, I never heard about that. At that moment, a horse-drawn carriage was speeding down the road. Asher remained calm as he looked out the window. Hyperion slowly began to instruct him. The people we are about to meet are the elders who secretly assist the Elheim family, like shadows. He continued to explain they are former heads of the main and branch families or seniors under Elheim, those who still hold immense influence even after retiring from the front lines, the rulers in the shadows. Then Hyperion sighed worriedly. That group of elders has never shown a single bit of interest since I adopted you, yet now they are summoning you. However, Asher just calmly turned his head. It's probably because of the incident at the Sword Dance Festival. Tell me what you know. The old men of Elheim value the family's reputation more than money, honor, or even their own lives. So I've heard. And those who tarnish that reputation will be thrown into a beast's cage and fed to them. As soon as he finished, Hyperion looked at his son with concern. Asher, where did you hear those rumors? He explained awkwardly, just somewhere a while back. In any case, I've already prepared myself to be executed or exiled. He frowned, looking intently at his son. Are you really okay, going out without any escort? But Asher replied with extreme calm. It's fine. I originally planned to leave right when my sisters arrived. He smiled gently and turned his head, especially Sister Khalifa. If I, the person she hates, am not around, she'll be able to relax more. Then Asher lightly touched his sword. Thanks to Sister Bolivia, I've begun to see how to master the sword. He gripped the sword tightly. I feel I can draw out more of the power of that duke than before. So, no matter what happens to me from now on, please don't worry. Asher continued, I am ready to survive on my own now. Hyperion's brows furrowed even more. Asher, you. But a voice suddenly cut in. Survive on your own. The youngest one is getting arrogant. Both of them were startled by the voice. He was shocked and couldn't believe his eyes outside the window. Khalifa suddenly appeared. Sister Khalifa, why are you here? She paid no attention to Asher's words. Wait, don't tell me you ran all the way here. Khalifa calmly climbed inside. Isn't this cruel leaving quietly without saying a word to your older sister? She said resentfully, I heard everything. You were summoned by the grand elders of the main house, right? Even Martha and I have never been summoned once. Hyperion awkwardly tried to interrupt Khalifa. I think you understand, but don't you? She sat down gently beside Asher. I understand. I heard Father called us here to look after things in his absence. I understand. It's very clear. Khalifa's sharp eyes glanced to the side, but this summons means something is up, so we have to be this cautious. Her voice rang out again. Martha's already told you. You know Aster might not come back. Hearing that, Aster gently tried to reassure her. You're exaggerating. I'm just going to meet them and talk. But whether or not I return safely is another issue. But then, Cliffa suddenly pointed right at him. Listen here, Aster, I hate you. Her sharp accusations rang out one after another. Because you're a man. Because you've always been treated specially. She continued, because you're stronger than me, your older sister, and because you keep acting like an adult, even though you're just my little brother, all of it. Aster stared at his sister, confused. The next words Cliffa spoke made them both stare intently. But even so, you're still my precious family. No matter how strong you are or how much you pretend to be an adult, you're still my little brother. She suddenly shot to her feet. So make sure you come back properly, and then we'll have another rematch. Cliffa decisively threw the door open. If you back out while you're ahead, I'll never forgive you. Without another word, she suddenly leaped from the carriage. Aster could only watch helplessly. What did she even come here for? Hyper Guy looked on quietly, praising her. That girl is a good opponent, he thought to himself. But thank you. Watching her figure fade into the distance, determination burned within him. I will definitely return. As soon as they arrived, a clear voice called out, Welcome back, Lord Hyper Guy. The soldier spoke coldly. The Grand Elder is waiting for you inside. Hyper Guy flatly refused. I don't need a guide, I know the way. Even so, the man replied calmly. I'm afraid I cannot allow that, sir. I have been ordered to personally escort you both inside. He observed them intently, thinking to himself, just as I thought, they didn't call me here to dote on their grandson. At least the atmosphere here doesn't feel like it. Aster observed quietly, but still. He glanced at the castle. It's nostalgic. It's been a long time since I've come home. Hyperguy suddenly spoke up. I'm sure you're already aware of this. His deep voice warned slowly, but for today, you must not lose your composure no matter what they say to you. Aster casually replied, that will depend on their attitude. Hyperguy closed his eyes in exasperation. This is exactly why I said they are a nuisance. He continued to ramble. Listen, the person we're about to meet is. At that moment, Aster's gaze swept across the training grounds, but he didn't see Dallas anywhere. With his dominant hand crushed, he probably won't be back on duty anytime soon. Hyperguy's voice pulled him from his thoughts. Are you listening, Aster? Under his father's gaze, Aster answered awkwardly. Yes, of course I am. He stated firmly, I'll be on my best behavior and keep quiet today after all my sister warned me to come back in one piece. The door to the room slowly creaked open, and the escorting soldier immediately announced them. Lord Hyperguy and his son have arrived. An unfriendly voice suddenly rang out. So, you've finally arrived. It has been over 10 years, hasn't it? The old man continued, Well now, my grandson Hyperguy. Hyperguy immediately knelt and answered respectfully. It has been a long time, Sixth Family Head. The old man corrected him. No, it should be great-great-grandfather. Aster glanced at the man before him. So this is the monster that lurks in the shadows of the Elam family. He thought silently, the sixth head of the main family, Dennis Ra Elham. Aster quickly scanned the room, guessing that the others were all high-ranking figures under the Elham family. He calmly looked at each person. I recognize a few faces from the sword dance festival. But a name suddenly flashed in Aster's mind. Jordan isn't here. As if reading his mind, Dennis spoke. He's not here, brat. The old man slowly explained that he is the captain of the Royal Knights. Leaning on his cane, Dennis slowly continued. He doesn't have time to bother with trivial matters like this, so we old men are helping him handle internal administrative issues. Aster frowned slightly as he looked at the old man. I never even had the chance to meet him in my past life, so I don't really care. He silently mulled over the possibilities, but to gather this many officials without the current family head present for a retired man, he seems to still wield a great deal of power. Then Hypergeist suddenly asked, and what exactly are these trivial matters? Dennis replied calmly, you've probably already guessed, haven't you? There was a hint of mockery in the old man's voice. I heard your pet caused quite a commotion at the sword dance festival. Anxiety immediately gripped Asher. It was just as he thought. Faced with the questioning, Fo Jiai calmly spoke up to defend his son. Regarding that matter, the current family head, Jordan should have already handled it himself. However, the elders present immediately sneered. That was nothing more than a show for the public. It doesn't change the fact that the Elham family's reputation has been tarnished. All those venomous words were immediately heaped upon him. Adopting a child of unknown origin into the family was a mistake from the very beginning. We could have turned a blind eye if he had remained harmless, but once he dared to show his fangs to the main family, it's a completely different story. There's no other way but to exile him, and of course you will not escape a fitting punishment either. Asher, standing beside him, couldn't hold back, and immediately retorted, wait, I was the one who did everything. He tried to explain everything in detail. My father had nothing to do with it. However, Fo Giai just shook his head slightly, signaling him to stop. Seeing this, Asher froze. The words caught bitterly in his throat. Without any regard, Dennis continued his criticism. It seems your method of discipline is quite lacking to allow a child to freely interrupt an adult conversation. The old man slowly stood up. We lead over 12 knights under our command. Dennis continued. We carry the weight of the Elham name on our shoulders. However, the knights are not a unified block. At Dennis's words, everyone around them shot disdainful glances at them. Countless people were watching from the shadows, waiting for a chance to seize the highest position. The old man continued to ramble naturally. That includes those present in this very room. Finishing his words, Denis now slowly approached. We simply want some reassurance. We need proof that you are not someone who will bring harm to the Elham family. He coldly raised the hilt of his sword, placing it right in front of Fo Jiai's face. He stared in confusion. What is this? Dennis coldly brought up the past. You still remember, don't you, when you failed to protect your master and dragged the honor of the Elham family through the mud? He coldly made a suggestion. In this very room, you allowed Roderick to cut off one of your arms. With a piercing gaze, he commanded authoritatively, this time prove your loyalty by taking that brat's head. At those words, a look of shock was evident in Asher's eyes. Without stopping, Dennis continued in a venomous tone, do that, and all of this will be forgiven. Despite the pressure, Fo Giai firmly refused, I refuse. He spoke without a hint of fear. I would rather take my own life than harm my own child. The boy beside him looked at his father in bewilderment. Dennis now replied with annoyance, is that so? Very well, then. He aggressively raised his staff. If that's how it's going to be. His voice was steely and merciless. Then you can just die. Your wife, your daughter, and that brat, not a single one will be spared. The moment he finished speaking, all the soldiers charged forward. From this day forward, the Viscount's family will be officially eradicated. In an instant, both Asher and Fo Jiai were tightly surrounded. Faced with this situation, the boy spoke slowly. What are you so afraid of, great-grandfather? That tone made Dennis turn his head in anger. What? Asher questioned coldly. A group of grown men huddled together and trembling. How pathetic. If you're that afraid of being bitten by your own dog, then just exile or dispose of me as you wish. Then he suddenly loosened his tie. But if you dare to lay even a single finger on my family. This action left Fo Jiai standing beside him stunned. He quickly ripped his shirt open. I'm sorry, father. I guess I can't stay quiet and obedient after all. The knights there couldn't help but be surprised. What is that? They stammered in confusion, looking at Asher's back. The sigil on his back, the mark on his back immediately began to glow. If that happens, that duke will become an enemy of the Elham family. Asher glanced at them coldly. You all had better think carefully. The people around were extremely bewildered. Impossible. Wait, isn't that duke's sigil? They still couldn't believe their eyes. It can't be a fake, can it? For that thing to appear on a human's body after hundreds of years. That mark is clearly real. Dennis's voice was also a bit flustered. Brat, do you understand the weight of what you are showing us? Asher turned back and answered resolutely. I understand. Asher's decisive answer made the blue-haired Viscount extremely excited. He clapped his hands and laughed loudly and repeatedly. Seeing everyone's attention turned to him, he gave a sheepish laugh. Forgive me, please continue. From his side, Dennis began to explain. First, a sigil is an organ that produces mana bestowed upon humans by the spirits in ancient times. By passing that power down from one generation to the next, humans have relentlessly honed its power. Yet, until now, no human has ever reached the 7 wings except for the elves who created that seal. Asher then questioned, Are you suggesting that I am an elf? He continued, If your 7 wings are real, then it is very possible. The continuous stream of unfavorable words directed at Asher made Defies extremely anxious. Asher spoke up, I am the son of a Viscount. Right now, I couldn't care less about my own body. All I want to know now is if you are ready to face me. Even if I were exiled from the Elham family, countless other noble families would flock to welcome these 7 wings. For people like you, who always fear rebellion, that would be a colossal threat. If possible, they would want to keep me as close as they can, a symbol of the 7 wings that even surpasses Grand Duke Roderick. This declaration startled everyone else in the room. Asher thought to himself, as the old man said earlier, even the Elham clan isn't a unified entity. The truth is, a rebellion is coming, a large-scale civil war that will consume this entire country. I have seen that future once before. For myself and my Viscount family to survive what's to come, I need to clearly distinguish who my allies and enemies are right here, even if I have to take a few risks. Asher's somewhat arrogant words amused Dennis. Haha, do you really believe you're that valuable? There's no proof that your 7 wings are real. Asher smiled, his voice sharp. If you don't believe me, then just come and kill me. If you do that, it will mean a war between me and all of you. As Asher spoke, he felt a bit of fear in his heart. If the Elham family were truly serious, killing someone like him would take no effort at all. How will they act now? Will they take the bait? The blue-haired Viscount clapped his hands once more. Then he stood up to join the conversation. It seems this conversation is just going around in circles. Great, Elder. How about we set a test for the kid right here and now? Hearing this, the blonde Viscount exclaimed in shock. Count Meyer, what are you doing? Meyer replied, You all want to see it too, don't you? The power of the 7 wings. It won't be too late to decide his fate after that. He turned back to the others. What do you all think? This is the domain of the greatest martial arts family in the world. I'm sure there are 1 or 2 suitable tests around here. Asher glanced at him, assessing Count Meyer, right? There's no doubt. His lips curled into a smirk. He's an ally. Hearing this, Dennis also seemed to agree. Very well, then follow me. After all, teaching a grandson who can't keep his mouth shut is a grandfather's duty. They then approached an iron cage, looking down into the deep abyss below. Is this the testing area? It's so dark. He began to explain. Behind this darkness is an underground tunnel connected to the water pipe system. This place used to be an emergency shelter, but now I'm keeping a mana beast in there. The test is simple. Just defeat that mana beast, that's all. Defies turned to scold him. Good grief, you are such a troublesome kid. After I warned you so many times to keep the existence of the 7 wings a secret. Asher turned back and smiled. I can't hide something so conspicuous forever. This is a good opportunity, too. Defies warned with concern. Don't let your guard down, understand. Asher then nodded and jumped down below. I'm going. Defies looked toward Count Meyer with somewhat worried eyes. The Count showed a slightly amused smile. After a few seconds, Asher landed. This place was very damp and indeed dark, but not to the point where he couldn't see anything. Asher's eyes suddenly glinted as he saw something. He was startled. That's up there. Dennis reminded him, I also gave her a chance to regain her honor. But she just cried pathetically until the very end. It was truly unbearable. And this explains Teresa's absence. Asher looked at the beast gnawing on Teresa's body. Dennis continued to remind him, Don't disappoint me, kid. Without any hesitation, Asher drew his sword and faced the monster alone. Asher stared at the giant monster standing before him. The moment he saw it clearly, the rumors people had been whispering for so long were finally answered. They said the Elham family secretly kept a mana beast in their mansion, and now one was standing tall right in front of him. At that moment, Count Aster had a surprising thought. Just this once, I actually feel a little sorry for you chrysanthemum kids growing up in a house full of monsters. Suddenly, the monster let out a terrifying roar, the sound shaking the entire grand hall, its massive body charging straight towards Aster at a horrifying speed. But Aster didn't retreat a single step. He calmly raised his sword-infused mana into the blade and then swung. It was a frighteningly clean and light slash. The blade passed straight through the monster's body. For a moment, everything seemed to stop. Then the monster was sliced in two, its two massive halves collapsing heavily onto the floor. The entire grand hall fell into a deathly silence, and many nobles took a few steps back in terror. But Aster remained nonchalant, as if nothing had happened. He said casually, "Sister Kudo is much scarier than this thing." Just then, something strange happened. An unusual dark aura slowly began to rise from the monster's corpse. Aster's expression immediately hardened. He had misjudged. This was no ordinary magical beast. This was an undead monster. Aster's reaction immediately caught his father's attention. With visible worry, he admitted that he had always suspected something extremely dangerous was hidden in the deepest room of the basement. However, the great elder just chuckled with a calm and interested tone. He began to reveal the truth. This monster was attracted to the smell of fresh blood and death, which is why it was locked away. That place was the perfect environment for it because of the countless corpses, but what's more frightening is that this undead can't be killed by conventional means. Slashing and burning are both useless. It was intentionally preserved for two purposes one day, to test the power of the sword and for the time being, to dispose of bodies. Hearing this, a blonde baron among the nobles frowned. Capturing an undead spirit alive is already extremely difficult. Even veteran knights struggle with it, yet the great elder had intentionally created one. The great elder's reply was cold. If the kid dies, it just proves he's a fake. A crest without wings is worthless, not even fit to be a decoration. He added an even more venomous statement. Even in death, he would still be useful. In fact, his death would make things much more convenient. While the conversation continued, the Count quietly observed Aster. After the boy's confident declarations earlier, he couldn't help but hope Aster wouldn't fall so easily. Meanwhile, the battle continued. Aster repeatedly clashed with the undead, fighting while observing it carefully. There was something very wrong with this monster. Every sword strike met almost no resistance, as if he were cutting through smoke. Its regeneration ability was horrifying. Wounds healed the instant they appeared. Even for an undead, this level of recovery was abnormal. Aster quickly recalled what the guidebook said about undeads. They have no life force, and there are only two ways to destroy them: completely sunlight or holy weapons. If you have neither, it's best to avoid fighting them. But Aster had no intention of retreating. If he had to defeat this monster using conventional methods, then his title of That Ruck would be meaningless. He would prove his strength through pure force. The moment he made his decision, Aster's power erupted. A terrifying pressure radiated from his body, and the surrounding air seemed to explode. The surrounding walls shattered in an instant, the stone floor cracked wide open, and debris flew everywhere across the grand hall. The terrified audience exclaimed, "What is this magic power?" So this is the power of a That Rook. What's happening down there? Has the kid already defeated it? Question after question rang out. Down below, after the explosion, the entire cage was engulfed in smoke and dust. Then, as the dust began to settle, the main character's body appeared without a single wound, not even a scratch. Seeing this, the great elder clicked his tongue and said, "What a pity." Then suddenly the monster raised its giant foot. Before Aster could react, its foot stomped down hard. The entire ground shook violently. Aster was buried beneath the monster's giant foot. Aster's father cried out in panic, but the Count immediately stopped him. The monster thought it had won, but under its foot, Aster was there. Everything was going just as he had planned. The monster looked a little thinner than before. Aster suddenly unleashed his power, thrusting his sword straight up. The blade pierced deep into the monster's chest. Blood spewed from its mouth and poured down onto Aster. In that moment, he knew the process had begun. His strategy was simple: stab it over and over again until the monster was completely dead. While observing, Aster's father noticed something strange. Aster's rhythm and movements were so familiar, but the more he watched, the more certain he became that this wasn't a technique he had seen before. This was something completely different. Then suddenly the entire area began to collapse. The ground shook violently. Huge cracks spread, walls fell, structures crumbled, and everyone panicked. But amidst the chaos, the great elder stood motionless, his eyes locked on Aster. And in that moment, he finally understood. This wasn't ordinary power. This was the true power of that Duke. In just a moment, everything had completely changed. The blonde baron was thrown aside like trash, flying across the great hall and slamming hard onto the ground, unable to even lift his head. What just happened? The panicked blonde baron stammered, "Where did the immortal monster go?" Denise didn't bother to answer. Just by lowering his gaze, the truth was all too clear. The immortal undead, along with the terrifying mana explosion, had vanished completely. Not by technique, not by skill, but simply by absolute overwhelming power. At the bottom of the pit, Aster lay motionless with only faint streams of energy still swirling around his body. Denise narrowed his eyes. This wasn't refinement. This was brutal domination using a terrifying amount of mana and superior quality to force reality to its knees. He turned to Hifide and asked, "Did you do this?" Hifide shook his head, his eyes still glued to his son. "No, even I didn't expect the boy to have progressed this far." Count Métis stepped forward, his voice full of anticipation. "So Aster has passed the test right." Denise now slowly walked past the crowd of nobles, his voice calm but decisive. "I have no objections." Métis quickly ran to the edge of the large pit. "You passed Aster, come on up." From the bottom of the pit, Aster's slightly tired voice called out, The chain got caught in the vortex. Can you guys throw down a rope for me?" A while later, in Denise's private room, the atmosphere was suffocatingly heavy. Denise stared at Aster in silence for a moment, then asked, "Are you sure? There's no second chance." Aster replied without a hint of hesitation, "I'm not interested in the inner household." He calmly explained, "If I stay here, my cousins will never be at ease, so I choose to stay with the house of Wenger Warder." Denise let out a faint sneer, still pretending to be modest. His gaze sharpened, "But I can see your ambition clearly in those eyes." The room fell silent. Denise asked directly, "Do you intend to raise your sword against this house, or are you aiming for Yoderic?" Aster tensed up under the terrifying pressure. Denise leaned back, smiled, and told him to relax. "I don't intend to probe your motives." He continued, "Rebels are not my enemies because they are not united. Yoderic is too strong now. If your existence can keep him in check, then I'll accept it." But Denise also gave a cold warning. "But if one day you turn your blade on me, the outcome will be very clear." Aster silently nodded in acknowledgement. As he stepped outside, he truly understood that Denise was absolutely not someone to be underestimated. Outside, Hifide immediately ran over and asked, "What happened?" Aster replied, "I was invited into the inner household, but I refused." Hifide was shocked, and before the atmosphere could get more tense, Count Métis interjected with a loud laugh. "What a shame, your future would be much easier in the inner household." Aster looked at him. "Then why did you help me earlier?" Métis laughed. "I was just testing a brave kid." His voice suddenly turned serious. "From this moment on, you are officially that Duke." After saying that, he glanced to the side. The surrounding nobles were dead silent, but their minds were filled with all sorts of greed, fear, and calculations. Some wanted to seize his power, some saw him as a threat to be eliminated, and others were thinking of ways to use him. Métis placed a hand on Aster's shoulder and said with a smile, "The title of that Duke holds immense value. Many people will come looking for you." Aster asked back, "Are you one of them too?" Métis smiled. "I am the headmaster of the Knight Academy. Recruiting talented individuals is my job." He glanced around the others. "Here have similar intentions. I look forward to the day you enroll." After saying that, he turned and left. Aster watched Métis' retreating figure, thinking to himself, "It's still too early to trust this person." Hifide suggested they go home. "Tell my little sister Asher will be so excited to hear the news." Asher gave a faint smile, pointing at his still bandaged wound. "If Mom sees these wounds, she'll pass out immediately." Scene change. A knight knelt before Sodric, reporting young Master Dadius died during the trial of Dennis. Jordan showed no expression, just gave a slight nod of acknowledgement, then asked more about Hyphojai being summoned and what had occurred. The female knight quickly reported everything. After hearing it all, Jordan said calmly, "That Duke has returned." The knight was astonished. "You already knew." At this rate, the long-maintained balance of power within the family will collapse. Shouldn't we take action, he suggested. Sodric sneered. Just leave it alone. If a small matter like this could shake Soma, it would have fallen apart long ago. There's no need to hurry. That Duke will eventually be mine. Until then, let's just let Asher grow and see how far he gets. 4 years later, the gates of the Terrasso Knight Academy. On the day of the entrance exam, a crowd of candidates had gathered. Whispers broke out as some people recognized Asher. Everyone was surprised to see he was now a fully grown man standing there with extreme calm and confidence. A young man stepped forward and placed his papers on the desk. The document clearly stated that the state and the Knight Order would not be held responsible for any casualties during the exam. After signing, the candidate had to present a wing emblem. The instructor asked, "What is your name?" Asher replied gently, "Asher of House Elam." The instructor paused for a moment, then looked up sharply. Asher, now a grown young man, smiled faintly, his voice slightly lazy. "My wing emblem is a little hard to present, so can you use my face instead?" Asher entered the grand examination hall. Just then, a man called his name, loudly catching everyone's attention. He pointed at Asher, his voice filled with contempt. "You look unfamiliar. I've never seen you before. You must be from some backwater town. This place is not for outsiders like you." This hall is full of the most elite nobles, the true cream of the crop. All of them have trained hard to participate in the prestigious selection exam to become Knights of the Kingdom. Asher remained calm and replied, "Clearly this is exactly where I belong." Hearing this, Vigo was startled, but his surprise quickly turned into irritation. He continued, "Everyone here has undergone rigorous and difficult training. Even so, they persist in pursuing their dream of walking the glorious path of the elite by taking the test again and again." He scoffed, pointing at the small sword at Asher's hip. "A complete newcomer carrying a measly sword like that dares to stand here. This isn't a playground for a greenhorned swordsman like you, so if you just came to look around, hurry up and go home." The people nearby whispered to one another, "It's Vigo again. He bullies the rookies like this every year, doesn't he?" Amid the whispering, all eyes turned to Asher. They realized the target was probably not just anyone. Wasn't that the rumored man from the Elham family? They whispered Asher of That Duke. That name instantly made the atmosphere more tense than ever. Vigo repeated in astonishment, That Duke." Just then, someone approached from behind, recognizing Asher in surprise. "So I finally know who you are." The newcomer was Guzion, who spoke with a cunning smile. "Long time no see, cousin. Since no one knows where or when you were born, I'll take the liberty of calling you cousin." Asher replied regarding Dadius, "I am very sorry." Guzion shrugged nonchalantly. "No, you don't need to concern yourself. A disgrace to the family deserved to die, and now that he's gone, I feel relieved. Even though he was only a year older than me, he was always bossing me around and being condescending, so to me, he was nothing but an annoyance. Whether that Duke title of yours is real or fake, don't you dare look down on the main branch of the family, because there is no one here to protect you anymore." After hearing Guzion, the crowd started gossiping. 2 people from Elham are participating this year. What bad luck! The main and branch families are in a bitter conflict. No one wants to get mixed up in something so dangerous. Realizing that Asher was from Elham, Vigo grew anxious. "Are you really from the Elham family?" Asod smiled and held out his hand, introducing himself calmly and humbly. "It's a pleasure to meet you. Just call me ASO2. The scene shifts to the first test site, the air thick with tension and anticipation. From the highest position, Hoster addressed the contestants loudly. "You have all made it this far, and I commend your courage and patriotism." Hoster emphasized, "The Royal Knights of Frigio are not like some provincial knights from the countryside. We serve the king, directly protect him, and are the glorious swords ready to lay down our lives for him. Therefore, there is no place for useless swords here. Show me your true worth and treat today's exam as a battlefield." Hearing this, Aso too chuckled softly, beads of sweat on his face. He thought to himself, his words sound ridiculous, but I can't deny their meaning. I've finally returned to this place. The path to becoming a royal knight, the path I was denied when I was powerless. Ahead lies a world of strength that was once completely beyond my reach. At the pinnacle of that world reigns a single man, the commander of the royal knights, Jodanik. With burning determination, Asot vowed to himself, "Just you wait, Jodanik, I will catch up to you in no time. But first I have to pass this selection exam." Hoster's voice echoed with authority. "It is time to begin." he declared without hesitation, the first test the Tower of Arrows challenge. The moment he finished speaking, the atmosphere shifted violently as arrows rained down from unseen directions. They struck the contestants with brutal precision, one collapsing instantly after being hit in the eye. The sudden and cruel attack sent a shockwave through the crowd, and So-2 stood frozen, witnessing the horrific scene. Hoster calmly continued, "The last person standing will be the winner." Many were hit instantly and fell, and panic spread like wildfire. The remaining contestants began to scatter, driven by their survival instincts. Amidst the chaos, desperate cries rang out, "What do we do now? Run standing still is certain death." A few tried to organize everyone, group up, cover each other, and block the arrows from the center. From above, Hoster watched calmly. As expected, those who were retaking the test from the previous year knew how to react. But even so, the survival rate is only about 30%. These measures are merely superficial and will soon reach their limit. What I want to see is superior problem solving, the kind that only those who bear the wing insignia are capable of. In the midst of the chaos, So-2 stood perfectly still. He neither ran nor immediately defended himself. As arrows tore through the battlefield, Vigo watched with irritation and confusion. What is that idiot doing just standing there? Is he frozen in fear? Rayon, standing nearby, smirked. How pathetic, just stand there and die like a porcupine. Suddenly, So-2 moved with clear intent. He drew his sword. A brilliant red aura erupted from his body, exuding immense power and might. Every incoming arrow was deflected with ease. The sight left everyone stunned, and the onlookers could hardly believe their eyes. Did he just deflect all of those arrows? A faint smile appeared on So-2's lips, his initial stillness replaced by confidence. "Bring it on, send them all my way." So-2 stood alone amidst the endless rain of arrows hurtling toward him, yet not a single one could touch him. Vigo witnessed the terrifying sight, completely shaken. Gripped by shock and horror, he stared at So-2, stammering incoherently. What kind of monster is he? What is he? Noticing that not a single arrow got through, the examiner watched the entire scene from a distance. He was visibly surprised, but unlike Vigo, his reaction was one of fascination and amusement. He carefully analyzed So-2's power and concluded he's rotating his released mana to create a powerful current. The precision and control behind this technique are truly impressive. It's as if he's enveloped himself in a storm of energy. Gradually, the intense red storm of energy began to subside. The surrounding trainees watched in a mixture of fear and awe. Has it stopped? Is it over? As the dust settled, the examiner noted the situation. Many contestants who should have died had miraculously survived, a result that impressed him with its sheer dominance. He remarked, "More contestants survived than expected, but that's all right." He praised their courage and told them to look at the bodies scattered around them. Those who were still standing had officially passed the first test. Giving them no time to rest, he immediately ordered, "Follow me to the next test site." Among them, a panting and still trembling Vigo whined, "Man, what a demonic proctor. Right after we endured a constant rain of arrows, too." In contrast, to remain calm, a faint smile on his lips as he looked at Vigo. "Are you tired already?" So-2's calm, almost indifferent attitude only irritated Vigo more. "How can you be so calm? What the hell did we just go through?" From above, the examiner continued to watch So-2 intently. He studied him with great interest to release such a massive amount of mana without showing any signs of fatigue. So this is So-2 of the Seven Colors. With growing anticipation, he was eager to see more, especially what kind of combat So-2 would display in the later stages. While addressing the crowd, Guzion's eyes remained fixed on Arthur. His face hardened as memories flooded back. He recalled his mother's words before this exam. "You must stop Arthur at all costs. The future of the Elham family is at stake." The pressure of responsibility weighed on him as tension built up inside Guzion. A moment later, the next phase of the exam arrived. The examiner stood before all the candidates and announced a new rule. To ensure balance, everyone will use identical swords. Exchange your current weapons before the orientation begins. Hearing this, Vigo became annoyed. "What's with this troublesome rule?" Arthur calmly asked. "Were the previous exams different?" He explained, "For mid-tier knights like us, the swords we use are usually similar, so it doesn't make much difference. But I guess the real reason for this rule is related to you." He implied that Arthur's special sword was being singled out for its uniqueness or potential danger. Arthur listened to every detail without showing much emotion. Just then, Guzion approached from behind with a calm yet mocking tone. "Cousin, have you already tamed a follower?" Vigo immediately flared up, shouting, "Who's a subordinate?" Guzion just smiled calmly. "If I remember correctly, you are the heir to the baronial family of Smither." Then, with a faint but sharp smile, he leaned in and whispered a threatening sentence. "A third-rate noble from the countryside like you dares to stand against me. If so, you'll face severe consequences." After speaking, Guzion turned and left, leaving a heavy, tense atmosphere. Vigo was shaken, his initial confidence completely gone, replaced by fear. "Young Master Guzion, I have nothing to do with him." Watching the exchange, Arthur couldn't help but give a strained smile. He thought to himself that the situation had become awkward. The atmosphere had clearly changed, becoming much more tense and uneasy. All the candidates moved to the next exam location, and the examiner began to explain the rules for the second test. The first test was competitive combat. This time, everyone will be divided into 3 teams and will compete to occupy the opposing team's barracks in the forest. Arthur and the other trainees listened intently. The examiner continued, "Raising your team's flag on the platform in the barracks will count as an occupation. The team that occupies 2 or more barracks when the signal drum sounds will be the winner. Also note that you cannot destroy or steal the flags. However, besides that, no actions are prohibited. The swords you've been given are essentially to allow you to cut down your opponents." Immediately after the examiner announced the team assignments, Guzion's team received the red flag. Another trainee's team received the yellow flag. Arthur's team received the blue flag. When the exam began, Arthur saw a smoke signal rise into the sky and informed his teammates. The smoke signal marked the start of the test. Each barracks has 3 flags, and to win, you need to capture 2 or more barracks, including your own. Vigo gradually understood the situation. Only one of the 3 teams can pass this exam. Arthur nodded in confirmation, but could sense the anxiety from his teammates. The others, already uneasy, pointed out, "Does this mean we have to fight the Elham family? That's going to be a bit difficult." Arthur felt awkward hearing that. Vigo, clearly frightened, explained, "Don't you get it? We're afraid of retaliation from the Elham family. Our opponent is the young master of the main family. Even though it's just an exam, striking him with a sword could ruin our futures. In the worst-case scenario, we might never call ourselves knights again, and even our families and retainers could be slaughtered. No one wants to become an enemy of such a powerful family. So, are you planning to give up on this competition? Is it worth continuing the exam? There will be other exams in the future. It's better than betting our entire lives." Vigo gave a strained laugh. "You probably don't understand how we the weak feel." Arthur ran forward, not expecting to be isolated in a team battle like this. At the same time, he understood their fear. Tonight's the Elham family was a tyrannical clan that couldn't be opposed, and Guzion was the symbol of that terrifying dominance. As Arthur recalled Vigo's words about not understanding the weak, he reflected on his own position. From an outsider's perspective, he was still considered a part of that family. Even so, he noticed everything around him was too quiet. No battles had started, yet making him wonder if everyone was being cautious or if something else was happening. As he entered the test area, he was startled. The captain of the yellow flag team was already there. He stood with his flag. It seemed Arthur's arrival alone had been anticipated. "Oh, I didn't think you'd dare to come here alone." Everything was happening just as he said. Arthur was confused, especially when he realized his opponent had already lowered his own barracks flag. "Who is he?" The blonde-haired trainee said casually, "I just happen to have some free time." Then he tossed his flag into the air and said clearly, "I want you to stay and keep me company for a bit. Model." Asser was shocked, not understanding the meaning behind this action. The blonde-haired trainee drew his sword, signaling the start of the confrontation. What on earth did this mean? Meanwhile, in another part of the forest, a cunning alliance had formed. Guzion's red flag team and the yellow flag team had joined forces with the common goal of defeating Asser. Guzion smiled confidently. "I will show you, cousin, how the House of Elham truly fights." The second test of the kingdom's knight selection exam was an attack and defense battle. As soon as the announcement ended, the battle officially began. 20 contestants were divided into 3 teams. The rules were clearly explained. The team that captured 2 or more bases by the end of the exam would be the winning team. In other words, the goal to pass the exam was to plant their team's flag on the enemy's base amidst the fighting. Asser stepped forward and asked directly, "Are you sure you're the yellow team? Then why are you flying a red flag?" At this moment, the blonde-haired man calmly replied, "The reason is very simple, because an alliance has been formed between Elham and me." After saying that, he began to release an aura from his sword. The surrounding atmosphere immediately became tense and heavy. The referee appeared and explained this person's identity. He is the eldest son of the Nolan family, a family famous as the founder of royal swordsmanship. His name is Christopher Nolan. He is a bearer of the five-winged crest. The referee continued, "In the first test, he was overshadowed by that Duke genius, so he didn't stand out much. But in the tower test, only two people passed through without their expressions changing at all. Those were Acer, that Duke, and Christopher Nolan. Both are outstanding talents possessing incredible potential. It's a pity that two such talented people must face each other in this situation." After hearing this, Acer immediately asked, "This is an alliance with Elham, isn't it? Do you really understand what you're doing? Even if you do this in the end, only one team can be the winner." After listening, Christopher calmly blocked Acer's attack. "I understand perfectly, and since Elham is on our side, I've decided that the main family will be the winning team." He continued to explain, "Perhaps right now, my teammates are heading to attack your base, along with Elham." Hearing those words, Acer suddenly felt a surge of danger, thinking to himself that the situation was bad Smith and the others were in grave danger. He continued to face Christopher and asked, "Did Guzion threaten you? Did he say something like, what would happen if you dared to oppose Elham?" Christopher moved forward without hesitation. No one deliberately stands in front of a charging carriage when they know they'll be crushed. We noble knights exist in a strict class-based society, so such actions are only natural. As he spoke, he launched a powerful attack, filled with overwhelming force, simultaneously declaring, "This is also the natural way a noble should behave." Acer tried to block the blow, but even while defending, he felt the pressure was beyond his control. In the next moment, his sword suddenly broke. The sword shattered. Acer realized something was wrong and thought to himself, "This sword is definitely faulty. Did that proctor from earlier deliberately give me a defective item?" Doubt lingered in his mind as he tried to understand what just happened, but Christopher didn't stop. He continued to press forward with powerful force and confidently declared, "There's no need to worry, because our fight from start to finish is merely a duel of honor between two nobles. I've never liked people from Elham, especially show-offs like you." Christopher ruthlessly shattered Acer's sword and attacked relentlessly, giving him no room to breathe. Acer was pushed into a defensive position under overwhelming pressure. But in the next moment, he quickly regained his composure. He grabbed the broken sword fragment. He channeled energy into it and suddenly launched a powerful attack forward. Christopher easily raised his sword to block it. In that moment of opportunity, he was surprised to see Acer had turned to flee. Christopher shouted in astonishment, "Are you really running away?" "Wait." Acer didn't stop calling back as he ran. "Our fight will have to wait. Right now, I have other people to worry about." Christopher sneered and mocked, "So you were scared after all? You're not even worthy of being called a knight." Then Christopher picked up the broken sword from the ground, examined it closely, and wondered, "What kind of sword is this? Even for a cheap sword, the quality is unbelievably bad." He realized something was off. Paused for a moment, ran a hand through his hair, and said softly, "I see. This is Elham's doing. They dare to play dirty and ruin the fun." Meanwhile, on the other side, Acer ran back to his territory and immediately shouted, "Smith, are you okay?" Before he received an answer, a familiar voice called out, "You're earlier than I expected, cousin." The person standing there was Guzion, the mastermind behind this entire plan. Guzion continued, "He boasted that he alone would be enough, which made me have some expectations for him. How are things on your end? We've just captured the third base over here. You could call this absolute domination for now." But before he could finish speaking, Acer cut in. "Guzion, what did you do to my teammates?" His question made Guzion a little uncomfortable. "Oh, that." From behind, a sword was pointed at Acer's back. His own teammates were pointing their swords at him with hostility and said, "Don't blame me. I told you from the start I wouldn't follow you, didn't I? I won't join a fool in fighting against Eoham." Guzion laughed triumphantly. "Ha ha ha. Those guys didn't even put up a fight. Even if they are just country bumpkins, they're smart enough to know which side to be on." Arthur calmly replied, "Do you really think numbers alone are enough to defeat me?" Murion waved his hand and smiled. No, you're gravely mistaken, little brother. We've already won." The condition for winning this battle is to hold 2 or more bases by the end of the competition, even if you desperately run to plant your flags at the other bases right now. You don't have enough men left to guard those flags. We'll just wait for you to leave for another base, then we can casually replace it with a red flag. We only need at least 2 bases, and as long as we hold them, we win. Arthur gripped his sword tightly and threatened. Then I'll just have to ruin your plan by cutting all of you down right here. The faces of the surrounding soldiers instantly turned pale, but Gu Yuan just laughed smugly. It's just a bluff. That sword of yours is useless now, isn't it? Even with a miracle potion, you're like a bird without wings if you don't have a weapon. Or are you planning to fight all of us here alone? Arthur smiled confidently as he drew his sword. Impressive. He tossed the sword behind him and continued. You've planned this out more thoroughly than I thought. Seeing this, Gu Yuan laughed triumphantly. I've definitely won. But contrary to his expectations, the moment